We are going to the story at the beginning. I am reading this in the words of the person who sent the story.
Quick backstory on the whole situation. I'll begin by saying that I've had many supernatural experiences ever since I was a child. Seeing things, hearing things, spirits messing with me, vivid prophetic dreams/nightmares. All the things that a little kid with spiritual abilities has to deal with. However, when I was 10 years old, everything took a slight turn. One night, I had a vivid dream where I was being chased by a black dog with glowing red eyes. I woke up from the dream at around 3:30 a.m. in a cold sweat, and I wasn't able to fall back asleep that night. I'm now 24, and I still remember that night like it was yesterday. Ever since that dream, my abilities started to become a bit more specific. I started noticing that I was becoming able to sense impending doom, minutes, hours, or sometimes days before it occurred. At that age, all of that was impossible to understand, and life was distracting enough already, so anything supernatural stayed dormant for a few years. When I was 15 years old, I finally felt the ability wake up again, and I got curious enough and started researching anything I could find about psychic abilities or the occult. And that was when I came across the folklore of the Banshee. For those who don't know, a Banshee is defined in the Irish legend, a female spirit whose wailing warns impending doom or death. As I did more research, I also found out that the black dog with glowing red eyes, aka a hellhound or el perro negro, is also known for being an omen of death. It is believed that if you see a hellhound 3 times in a row, you will soon be met with your death. I know what you're thinking. Just imagine my surprise. This time, I decided to focus on the ability as much as I could, and I actually developed it a bit more. Now finally, let's fast forward to the September night of 2017. I was 19 years old, and just like the dream, I remember this night like it was yesterday. It was a little bit past 4 a.m., and I remember still being awake while gossiping with friends on Twitter and all that fun stuff. I specifically remember laying down, and as I was typing a reply tweet to my friend, I heard it. The loudest, blood-curdling screams I had ever heard in my life. It truly sounded like a woman was getting brutally stabbed. To this day, I haven't heard a scream that perfectly matches the scream I heard that night. Just to paint a picture, my bedroom is in the far back of my house, and one of the walls is basically just a huge window that looks towards our backyard. The scream sounded like someone was screaming from the middle of my backyard. All my surrounding neighbors had outside dogs at the time too, and not a single bark was heard. It was like only I could hear the screams. The weirdest part about all of this was that I didn't feel scared at all. I swear, I literally stayed laying down and finished typing the tweet and sent it. I was truly unbothered. Now that I seriously think about it, I didn't even decide to record or felt alarmed or immediately told my parents. I just sat there and listened. The screams lasted for a good 30 seconds. The first thing I thought after they stopped was, oh my god, my neighbor is literally getting murdered. But seconds after, I let out, oh no, because I realized that I had finally been visited by a banshee. And banshees don't visit just to scream and scare. They visit to warn of a death. That is when I got a little bit worried. I remember tweeting about it, and I even told some coworkers about what had happened. But I didn't think too much of it till a week later. Exactly 1 week later, I woke up to the news that someone from my mom's family had passed away. I didn't know the person. They were actually a new addition to the family because my mom's cousin had just remarried at the time. When my mom told me, I immediately gasped and said, hace una semana exacta que escuché los gritos, and she just stayed quiet and realized that this was all indeed real and not just a myth. To this day, I haven't had any more visits from the banshee, and now I have an outside dog in my backyard. So I can't imagine that situation happening in the exact same way. As far as my ability goes, I do focus on developing it more every now and then. But it's never going to be a thing that I can just easily control and be able to turn on and off at my will. I've actually predicted multiple tragic events, but the way it works, it's still too complex for me to explain. Anonymous. Hi Daisy, I have a story to share with you. This is not my own, but it happened to my grandma, and I have her permission to share it with you. When my grandma was younger, probably around 8 years old, she says she used to wet the bed every night. So she would have to get up in the middle of the night to get clean bed sheets and a change of clothes. Children her age at that time were always taught to be very independent, so she never needed to wake up her mother at night. Anyways, she got up one night because she wet the bed as usual, and she had to get a clean blanket or bed sheets, but the place where they stored them was on the other side of the room, meaning she had to go through the living room area in order to go get them. In the living room, she had one of those small tables with the small chairs for kids to eat and play. It belonged to her and her sisters, so the table had 4 little chairs that only kids could sit on. When she came out of her room, she says she went to the living room and there was her little table with the chairs. Except there was someone sitting on one of the chairs. At first, she thought it was one of her siblings, but when she took a closer look, she realized it was a little kid that she had never seen before. He looked around her age, probably 6 or 7, and she said he was smiling at her. He waved for her to go sit and play with him, but she was so scared she couldn't move. He kept moving his little fingers, signaling her to come closer to him. But when my grandma could finally move, she ran as fast as she could to her bedroom and away from it. She didn't even care that her bedsheets were all wet. She said she covered herself with them and started praying. She closed her eyes tightly and never took her blanket off because she was afraid of what she would see. Somehow, she ended up falling asleep, and she says the next morning she immediately went to her mom to tell her about it. But her mom didn't believe her. She told her that she was probably dreaming it. But my grandma strongly believes she wasn't dreaming because she remembers it clearly, even to this day. And it's been so many years. My grandma believes this entity was what they called El Cipitillo in El Salvador, an urban legend that people say only children can see. He has backward feet, apparently wears a huge hat, and can travel from place to place with his magic powers. However, this could have easily just been the spirit of a small child that lived in my grandma's house, and for some reason he decided to reveal himself to her. No matter how or why, it's still scary to think about seeing a complete stranger sitting in the dark in your living room. I would like to share an experience that my dad had experienced when he was a young child at the age of 7. My grandpa at the time couldn't really afford a new mattress, so he bought one off a local secondhand store. After a while sleeping on his new mattress, he would hear a baby crying in his room. At first, it didn't scare him. He brushed it off. But then, after a while, he began feeling a push against him, pushing him off the bed, and then the cries that he would hear stopped. After that incident, he went to tell my grandma about a baby crying in his room. She said, "It's your imagination, just go back to bed." When laying back down again, his bed started moving. He jumped off again and once again told my grandparents. My grandpa got out of bed upsettingly, going to his bedroom, shaking off the sheets, saying, "See, there's nothing there." After that, my dad was so scared, he decided to sleep on the floor instead. But the following night, he was hearing scratches against the mattress while laying there. The next day, when my grandpa got home from work, he would notice my dad not wanting to eat and was just sitting there scared. He then told my grandpa he wanted to sleep with his siblings that night instead because he no longer wanted to sleep on that mattress. My grandpa then said, "If you don't sleep on that mattress, I'll just take it away." My grandpa then went to his room, punching down on that mattress, saying, "See, there's nothing there." My dad decided to start praying before going to bed because of how scared he was to even go to sleep. Then, all of a sudden, he heard a loud scream, and then was pushed off the bed from that mattress and fell onto the floor. When the weekend came, my grandpa was scolding my dad about the mattress situation. He picked it up, and that is when he realized there was a stain on it. So my grandpa got out his switchblade and poked the side of the mattress, cutting it like a sandwich on the side. He had noticed it was black. He took the mattress outside and called out my grandma along with my dad's siblings to see. After cutting it, he noticed some dried blood. It was a large blood stain on the inside with no odor, but the outside was so clean. My grandpa decided to throw the mattress in the back of his truck, and my grandma, along with my dad and his siblings, went to the city to have it crushed. My grandpa did not want to make a report on it or anything, but to just have it crushed. My grandpa told my dad, "No one will bother you now." It was a relief to everyone, but my dad couldn't sleep for a very long time because of this experience, nor wanted to sleep in his own bed because it had traumatized him. I can't imagine the feeling that my dad was feeling. I know, a very long story, but this is an experience that my dad wanted to share. Nikki. Hey Daisy, my name is Andrea. I have always been very sensitive to spirits and the paranormal. About 10 years ago, my family and I were looking for garage sales. We landed on one just a few blocks down my house, and I was instantly drawn to this full-sized mirror. It has a stand, and the actual mirror has pegs that can be adjusted. It was absolutely beautiful, and I purchased it on the spot. I took it home and found a spot for it in my room. I cleaned it, I dusted it off, and just admired it for hours. The horror did not start until the house became still at night. That same night, I was awoken by the sound of footsteps. I thought nothing of it because we have tile and footsteps echo through the house sometimes. Nights would go by and I would hear the footsteps over and over again, constantly being awoken. It wasn't until the footsteps started to get louder and more aggressive that I realized it wasn't my family. I would quickly shoot out of the bed and the footsteps would stop. I would try to go to sleep, but they continued. I started to ignore them, but then things started to escalate. By this time, I realized that it had to do with my mirror, but I would try to ignore it. It was hard to keep my sanity because I was being deprived of sleep. As the days went by, the entity became more aggressive. I was able to pinpoint that the spirit was pacing back and forth between my mirror and my bed. And I'm sure the entity noticed that I was ignoring it. So that's when it started to rattle some of the things on my dresser. My breaking point was when my huge old school TV started rocking and was about to be knocked off my desk. Out of tiredness and sleep deprivation, I loudly said, "I am sorry you are upset that I purchased your mirror. I promise I will take care of it and keep it safe." Little did I know that I had made a pact with it at night. After that, things subsided. The entity was at ease. That is until I moved out of my parents' house. I moved away from home about 4 years ago to pursue my career. And I only took a few essential things and left most of my stuff since I wanted my room to feel like my room when I would go visit. I left the mirror behind, thinking nothing of it. My mom called me one day and told me that weird things began to happen when she was alone. She let me know that she would see una sombra saliendo y entrando de mi recámara, and that it felt angry, as if it was looking for something. I assumed that it was pissed off at me because I was not abiding by the pact. My sister decided to put the mirror in my closet where it was covered in all of my clothes. The activity seemed to have subsided. Fast forward to the summer, I decided to go back home and spend the summer with my family. One evening, my aunt came over and she was frantically looking for a dress. I told her that I had a new one I rarely used, so I went into my closet to look for it. I moved my clothes and uncovered my mirror. I looked at my mirror and said, "Oh, you're here. I forgot you were in here," and grabbed the dress and left my room. I made a huge mistake because I didn't cover the mirror back up with my clothes, and I left the closet door open, so I released the now very angry entity again without realizing it. That same night, I fell asleep and had a strange dream that I was laying on my bed. I was staring at the wall in front of me and noticed there was a radiant glow in the room. I wasn't able to move my body, but I could only move my head. I quickly realized that the glow was coming from my body. I was captivated by the glow, but was quickly startled. I started to hear these loud bangs coming from inside of my room. The banging was so aggressive that the frames on my walls were shaking. My heart felt like it was going to explode. I went from feeling peace to absolute terror. After the 5th bang, I snapped out of my dream. I was still in the same position, but now my body wasn't glowing anymore, and I could still hear the banging. I was so scared because I couldn't move my body. I could only move my head. I quickly turned my head to see if I could find what was causing the noise. When I did, the banging stopped, and only a few inches away stood the entity. I was absolutely petrified. It presented itself in the figure of a woman. It was a really dark shadow with really long dark hair. I was able to see that it had a really defined jaw. It stood over me in a very aggressive manner. Its head was hunched over, glaring at me. The most frightening part was that I was not able to move. I kept blinking to ensure that it wasn't my eyes playing tricks on me. And in a split of a second, it disappeared. And I was able to move again. I did not sleep the rest of the night. I still have my mirror locked in my closet and have plans to display it the day I get my own house. The moral of the story: be careful what you buy from yard sales because it could come attached with some wicked stuff. So that was it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this type of style of reading my subscribers' stories. I feel like I really can put more stories into one video, and I know you guys want that. I know you guys want that. You guys are saying, girl, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour stories. We'll get there. We will get there. So let me know your guys' thoughts down below. Should I keep doing it like this? Or maybe switch it up here and there? Let me know down below. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys all in my next one. Bye!